thank you, Pastor Jay, for joining me here. You are um, not just an important man in my life, just because you were my pastor or anything, but it's more like you're a powerful example. Just not only what a husband looks like, what a father looks like, but more importantly, what a man looks like. And to me, growing up without that example, aside from TV, and even TV, it's a joke for a lot. Like men are the butt of the joke a lot of time. You were just
Yeah.
such a breath of fresh air, and just like it's so great to see you, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you on this subject. And for everyone who doesn't know, what's your name?
Well, first, thank you for saying those words, man. That's awesome. I'm honored to be on here. It's a privilege, and I'm excited for what God is doing in your life and what you're just doing for people and how you're helping them out in every walk of life. And I think that's amazing. My name is Jay. Last name Arisso, and yeah, I was born and raised here in the U.S., but my parents are from Cuba. So if you hear a little bit of sazon in everything I answer, it's because what I'm saying, it's the Caribbean is in me.
I love it, man. And tell me, how many kids do you have, for those who don't know?
So my wife and I have three kids, three children. Yep, we have a 16-year-old daughter. She's the princess of the house, and then we have a 13-year-old boy, and we have a 11-year-old boy.
Excellent, man. I wanted to bring you on here specifically because I'm kind of bringing anyone who's a dad. That's my vision. I think everyone's got such a great wealth of experience and just so much to learn from every person. And with that, it's Joey's like Joey was on here. His walk of life is different than your walk of life. Your walk of life is different than Pito's, or Eric's. And it's like we have different walks of life, but we can come to some similar conclusions. And not only that, but we also come up with different experiences. And I wanted to use this as a platform for dads to speak about what it's like to be a dad,
Mm,
and have in my vision, my mission is other parents to see this and kind of like see what other men are doing. But most importantly, I think the guys who probably feel like they aren't doing enough, or probably feel like this is an area of their life where they want to improve, but they don't know where to go to. Maybe they don't have the greatest examples. And I think honestly, the kids who probably don't have, who are like me, who didn't have that male figure, so they don't have dad to talk to, and they're just talking to the dad in their head.
yeah,
And I think this is going to be this is for all of them.
yeah.
So my
I think
first question.
that's awesome, man. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think that's
No,
awesome. I think that's exciting that you're creating content and just like something that maybe will inspire, because it's so worth it, because you don't know who it's going to touch. Even if it touches just one person, it's worth the change, So I think that's awesome. It's really good.
yeah, man, it's a gift. So the first question I have to you is, what is your happiest memory of being a father so far?
Wow, I would have to go to the moment that my wife told me that she was pregnant. She, her and I got married in 2003. And in 2005 is, I remember her coming to me and telling me that, that we were expecting. And it was just, I didn't even, the moment that we knew, we didn't know what the gender was. So it had nothing to do with like if it was a girl or boy kind of thing. 'Cause sometimes I say that because sometimes you'll hear dads like, oh, I got that boy and he's going to,
Uh-huh.
he's going to carry on the last name or he's going to, carry on the dreams that I always wished I had of, becoming a major league baseball player or something, but it
uh,
wasn't even about like the gender. It was really just the idea of, being a dad. It was just an amazing experience. I remember feeling like, wow. The first feeling was, um, this is like something that I can never even ask for. I mean, you ask for it, like you say, God, I would love to, for us to have a kid. When you talk about it, it wasn't like a oops kind of thing, but
mhm.
but it was something that I couldn't describe in words. The feeling that I got when she told me that we were expecting. And then obviously when it just goes, it just starts building from there. It's like, I'm going to use a word that I used in this weekend. It's like it's sort of like the unpacking of a gift. You know what I'm saying? Like you get that one gift and then you start unpacking it little by little, and you still unpacking it all these years. You know, so that's cool. That's that for me. That's my first, like my earliest memory of like just a happy moment of fatherhood.
That's, you touched on something like a great metaphor, like it's a gift that you're still unpacking.
Mm-hmm.
And like that is such a wonderful, I haven't heard that before, so
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
that.
it's good.
And well, tell me, what is your greatest hope for either each of your kids, or all of your kids in general?
You know, it's funny because as a dad, you don't come with a when you become a dad, they don't give you a manual. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's no, like, like the TV that comes in, it comes with this manual. You can tell them how to go to menu and then go to HDMI 1 and 2. And
Yeah.
I'm talking to dudes right now, so you understand what I'm talking about. The technical part, you know what I'm saying? Like you look at, and we never read the manual anyways. We get the thing, and we never read the manual, and so we don't understand it, and we go back to it, or we have to download it online because we threw it out because we thought we knew everything. With being a dad, you don't get a manual, technically, right? But for us, at least for me and my wife, we look at the Bible as a great example, as a manual for life, just in our point of view. And there's so much knowledge and wisdom in there for us to dig out. So as you dig out of scripture ways that you can invest in your kid and how you can raise them, and how you can set them up for success, even though it doesn't guarantee it. You look at parenting, or at least as a father, definitely as a father, but obviously as a mother, my wife also. You look at raising them and looking at them and having hope in them individually. So instead of like looking at it like, across the board, I want all my kids to do this. We've had to learn that we're looking at every kid individually. So for my daughter, I want to raise them all with the same principles, the same convictions, same faith, sort of point them in the same direction. But obviously it's tailored to their personality, to their character, who they are as a person, because they're unique. Each one of them, God created them differently, like all of us, right? So for each one of them, I really have different hopes, different different aspirations. But at the end of the day, this is one of the biggest challenges for me, at least for as a dad, is knowing that even though I have all these aspirations for them, even though I have all this hope, and I have I really want the best. Obviously, I want the best for them as a dad. I've got to know they're going to make their own decisions. And I think that as we, going back to the analogy of the gift, as we start unpacking, how when you get that gift that you weren't expecting, and it's good, but you're like, this is not really the one I wanted, but it might be the one that I need, or it's like that kind of thing. As we raise them and we're unpacking it, it could be that we unpack something that we're like, hey, this is not really what I really wanted, but you don't know really what God has in plan for them specifically, So you've got to, I think through the years, what we've done is just learned how to, aspire, hope, give them principles, convictions, invest in them, while, knowing that God is doing his thing in their lives, and that they're going to make their own decisions, and us be okay with that. Yeah.
So is that, it sounds like to me, it's also like, yeah, we have different hopes for each of our kids, but at the same time, it's also like relying and understanding and leaning on God's understanding. And like, yes, I have my hopes, but at the end of the day, it's what God wants.
Yeah, I think not to get too theological on your podcast, but it's right. But I think that in our understanding, like, so if we believe that God is God, right, then we've got to understand that he's sovereign, he has everything under control. So you got to trust that, right? You got to trust that they're going to make decisions, and that he's guiding them too. I think as dads, a lot of times we want to control things, especially when they're little. Like you want to really control their. You want to. The way we say it is, we want to protect them, right? But at the end of the day, protection becomes control a lot of the times. And as they're little, they could be controlled, sort of, right? Even though sometimes they trick you, you think they're controlling, but they're really using psychology against you. And since they're little, man, the moment they're born. But I think that, we learn that we can't control everything, and that God has everything under control. So for us, it's really about trusting Him, investing, and I think trusting Him and being those parents that are there since they're little, investing in them and planting those seeds. And then when they get to a certain age, things transition. I mean, I don't remember the questions exactly, so I don't know if you're going to ask me this later on, but there's changes in each transition. You become a different style of parent or a different style of dad through the ages. So things change a little bit, and that means you got to not redefine your role, but definitely you have to sort of transition into a new version of the role.
And with those change, and I'm glad you touched that, because that's kind of where I was coming from, with the sense of like yeah, I have it. As men, we definitely have that want to not just control but also protect. Like, hey, I have the best intention, and we're going to do it this way, and we're going to do it that way, because this is the best way that I've seen, and that I'm calculating this whole thing. And then it's like, all right, well, life happens, and we're going to go in another direction, and we pivot and we adjust. And I'm curious, for you, have there been any hopes that have adjusted in these different phases? Especially, you had your first daughter, then you had your second son, then you had your third son. Like, I'm guessing the phases, the things also change as more kids come into play, let alone the different age, as they go through different ages.
Yeah, I think who changes is us, man. Like, when you have a first kid, you want to do everything possible to give them the best opportunity. Not that you don't want to do the other ones, but like the first one, you get every like appliance, you buy every book, you get every DVD. You know what I'm saying? Like, at least in our times, you saw everything. It's just crazy. Like, you just put into it, because in Spanish they call it los primericios. Like, it's your first time. So it's like you're trying to pour into everything into them. But then, when the second one comes, you've seen the memes, you've seen the stories. Like, the second one comes, the kid. So the first one's like the kid can't come out of the room, the kid come out of the crib. The second one, he's sort of like running outside the room. The third one is like outside playing in front of cars. You know what I'm saying? Like, it changes. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but don't cancel me as a dad. I'm a good dad, but I think that we change, so our transitions, we change. And I think what I was saying about transition is a little bit different, but it's still connected, where I changed through every single kid. Number one, raising a daughter in this day and age is a little bit different than before. So then when you come into being a dad, you come in with really the only manual that you have, other than the Bible, is what you experienced as a son. So what your mom and your dad, how they brought you up, you sort of you go by default to what you learned. And raising a daughter nowadays is different than when my dad raised my sister. It's a little bit different. Although it's the same. I don't know if you get what I mean. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's timeless principles that don't change. And not to get into psychology and all that, but there's definitely timeless principles that don't change when it comes to the relationship of a father with a daughter. But then there's also social difference, though, so things have changed a little bit. So from a dad, from a daughter, from a dad, it changes us, and it definitely changes us of how you look at certain things and what you think and what you dream of. Just going back to your question of like, if the hope changes through those transitions, definitely. I mean, I think we change, and then we have to learn how to change. So, like, I'll give you an example. When they're little, from 0 to 5, right? You're sort of being, that studies show that from 0 to 6, their personality is being developed. But from 0 to 3, 0 years, I mean, firstborn to 3 years old, their personality, their character is actually being formed. Their personality is being formed really strongly. So, from the firstborn all the way to 6 years old, It's the disciplining age. So you're putting a lot of discipline into their lives. So your hopes and aspirations for them is sort of like, yo, listen, when I put you in timeout, or when you get yelled at, or you get, you're
Yeah.
corrected, that you follow through. You know what I'm saying? That's sort of like the hope and inspiration for that group. Like, you're not trying to, I mean, not us. There's
Yeah.
some dads that are great, and they have them maybe listening to Mozart, and and maybe they're doing some Bach stuff. But for us, man, like we were just trying to figure out how do we get her, how do we get these boys to stay in the place that we got, because we're trying to show them discipline so that this builds into the next transition. Because growing up, it's like anything, it's like education, it's like anything in life, faith, everything you do, like bodybuilding, whatever, it's a brick that you can't look at the wall, you got to look at the brick. And as you lay every single brick, you're little by little building that wall that's going to be strong later on. But if you're focusing on the wall, if I'm focusing on my kid only, like I want to have vision, but if I'm only focusing on what they're going to be one day, which is a struggle, because as a dad, every single thing you see, you're thinking, oh my gosh, he's going to be this. And then any dad understands what I'm talking about. Like you see them react wrong, and you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be locked up. Like, oh my Lord, like this guy's going to be in jail. I'm going to have to bail him out. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't do that. You got to have a vision, but you can't be focusing on what's going to happen, because you got to focus on laying every brick one piece at a time. And so I think that through transitions, you're focusing on that, and then it changes at the ages. You go from disciplining to then developing, and then after that you become a coach. Really, you become a coach, and then the last transition, which is where I'm at with my dad, you're a friend. It's pretty much where it is. That's the healthy way of actually looking at it. People look at it different culturally, that sometimes it changes, but that's pretty much how I look at it. So yeah, definitely hopes change through transition groups. I don't know if I answered your question. I hope I did, but
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love what you mentioned about your dad. Because that kind of led me to like question that I had, like, what is it that you had in your relationship with your dad, your mom, or both of them, that you have been creating in your relationship with each of your kids?
I'm going to move this a little bit because there's these two beams of light that are coming down from heaven over my head. So one of the things that I have with my dad, I would have to say the first thing that comes to my mind is that my dad invested a lot of time in me. But it's crazy because I look through the years, and I've always said that, like, if you've ever heard my story, or you've seen me interview my dad or talk about my dad, I always say, my dad invested a lot of time in me. But through the years, I've learned that it wasn't like my dad was always with me. My dad was working, and I actually spend a lot of my time with my mom. A lot of my time with my mom. I picked up a lot of great things from my mom, like a lot of discipline and my sense of style. Come on, man. I know how to dress because mom, all that stuff. But more than anything, I don't know if that was a good idea to say, because guys are going to like, you dress like your mom? No, I don't know. But the sense of style is good. But what I picked up from my dad more than anything, really, what I think that impacted my life from my dad was that he spent a lot of time, but quality time. Like, he would, I'll give you an example. Like, when I was 5 years old, my dad was a entrepreneur since forever, right? So when I was really, really young, I was the firstborn, and to make ends meet and to do things, he would sometimes have two jobs. But for one point of my life, when I was little, he had a lunch truck, like a hot dog truck. And back then, that was like a big deal. I mean, he had this, this route that he would go to, like this sort of like he would stop at these different factories and stuff like that. But I remember at 5 years old, man, 5 o'clock in the morning, me being outside sitting in that truck, with my dad. He was doing stuff, and it's crazy. You would think like, that's crazy. Well, kids wake up sometimes. I'm thinking back now as a dad, I understand. Sometimes kids wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was like he woke me up. I'm pretty sure that I woke up, and then he brought me with him while he was prepping the truck. And I have memories of that. I remember, times that at nighttime, he would come back from work, and then he would go to his second job. His second job would be like, go and sell. One of the things he sold so many things, but one of the things he sold was, for example, plastic bags to stores, right? Like, I guess he got a hookup someday, and some place that they had like a warehouse full of plastic bags. So he bought them at one price and he would sell them. Well, he took me with him. And as through the, maybe at a certain age, I was already going into the store and selling bags myself, and then he would pay me 50 cents to do it. But the times in between, he would take me to McDonald's to go eat something, or we would go hang out and we were talking. So it was like I was doing life with Dad. And I would say that that is what invested in my relationship with him later on. So all through the years, I can't tell you that he was my best friend, because I don't think my dad ever knew what I'm telling you. I think that he lived what I'm telling you. And what I'm telling you now is really studied and backed up, and I'm bringing it to you as like an academic point of view, but he just lived it. And I believe that God is the one who put it in his life, because my dad's story is different than mine. My dad, his dad was 60 years old when my dad was born. My grandmother was 30. So my dad had my grandfather for 14 years of his life. And when my dad was 14, my grandfather passed away. But those 14 years, life was different because his dad was older, different generation. My grandfather was born in 1889. That's just, that's crazy. The relationship, the gap, generational gap. So my dad didn't have a dad that was, spending a lot of time with him, talking to him, catching up on the newest thing. It was really a sort of like a cold kind of relationship. So my dad didn't pick that up from his dad. I think what my dad did was he made a decision to say, I'm not going to let my kids go through what I went through. And because of that, he grabbed it, and he, God, I believe God did it, but God used him, and he was able to make a decision to do things different. So that's what he did, man. He invested in my life a lot, quality time. And I think that's a struggle for a lot of dads, because sometimes they'll be like, well, I don't have that much time. I'm working so much. It's not about like you're with them all day. It's about, making intentional, strategic moves to make sure that you have that time. And when you say you're going to have that time, let that be the time. Like, don't be on the phone. Don't just have them with you in the car, but you focusing on something else just to say I have time with them. No, like really intentional time, like spending time talking to them. And I think that that's what makes a difference.
Yeah, Joey hit on that too. Like, that's one of his proudest moments, just being there. And a friend of mine told me this years ago, kids don't spell love, Love. And I believe you mentioned this to me too in a sermon. Yeah. They spell love Time.
Time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good thing I know how to spell. And when it comes to that, let me ask you this: what are specific things that you're doing with your kids, that you empower doing with your kids, to upgrade how you grew up? Maybe things that you're doing a little bit better, or maybe things that didn't happen that you're doing now.
Wow, that's a good one, man. So I grew up as a kid that, since we were little, my grandmother just dedicated her life to Christ when she was in Cuba, when she was a little kid, right? So my dad grew up, in faith, since he was little. And then obviously they invested that in our lives. So we're talking about 3 generations of already, walking in faith. But that being said, my dad didn't really make us or guide us or invest in us to go to church. It sounds crazy, but we didn't have to. As a matter of fact, the earliest memories of me going to church was sort of like in groups of time. Like, there was a time when my dad wasn't going back because of certain reasons, and then we would go with my grandmother, and so we were never really invested. So I believe that a lot of times, I think back, I probably it would have been great for me to be, consistent with my walk in my faith throughout the years. What we've done, and the same story sort of with my wife too. Like, she grew up in a believing house, but it wasn't like a consistent thing with the model of the parents. So instead of us being religious, and instead of us, because that's the way I look at it. I look at it like, even if they would have made me go, if it wasn't like a constant, real relationship that I would have seen, then it wouldn't have meant anything either. So for us, it really is, okay, listen, no, we're doing church together. Church is a lifestyle. Church is not just a place you go to. It's our faith is lived out in everything we do. And we're not judging anyone if they don't. This is just our unit. This is our thing. This is how we do it. And that's the way I speak at home. So one of the things obviously there's a lot of things that we do that we've learned throughout the years. But I'm gonna change this because the sun now moved. One of the things that we do, I would say that stands out is definitely, um, you know, being consistent and intentional with our faith and letting them know that this is the way we do it. This is who we are, and we're not judging anyone else or doing anything, but this is what we do as a family. And, obviously it's not perfect. Kids are kids, and you sort of guide them. And I think that for us being able to make it fun has made a difference. So church being fun, and doing things, and our faith walk is fun. It's not like we're just living inside of a bubble, doing nothing. Like, we're living life, they're living life, they're part of this world, but they don't, they live here, but they're not part of it completely. They have their convictions, they have their, little by little we build them. I think that's something that I can say that that's something that we've done to sort of, I don't know if upgrade is a good thing, but I think building on, right? That was a good word. We've built on what we've learned. We've definitely, I would say that's the main thing. We've made this a focus. We've been intentional with that's a good way to say it. We've been intentional with our faith, not just accidental. If that's a good way to phrase it. You know how it's accidental? It's sort of like, that's who we are. And sometimes we go on Sundays. No, we're intentional with it.
I love that. And I think me and Maria could definitely say, like, yeah, it's you've created an experience, not just for them, but like for everyone at that congregation. And I'm guessing if you could go back in time with each of them, what would you do the same?
What would I do the same with them? What I would just finish telling you. I think this is important, and I hope I'm not coming off as you introduced me as Pastor Jay, so everybody's got to know that I'm going to talk about this. But I think this is important because this is one saying you've heard me say. You've heard my brother-in-law say it many times. You heard it, church. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So we had to. I think that it's important for us. I'm talking about our family, right? And I would recommend it for anybody, but I would say I'm talking about our family. I would say that it's super important for us to make a stand in our beliefs and our convictions without being arrogant or judgmental. So if I would repeat anything with them, I'm going to do the same thing, because everything else, like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know what the outcome is going to be on everything else that I do. But what I can tell you is that I can see it by generations, right, of past, that you invest in them when it comes to their faith and their walk with God, and knowing the difference between religion and relationship, like all that stuff. I think that is, I know that's a given. Like, I know it's gonna be guaranteed. So it's like when you get, like, that if you see all these cryptocurrencies and you don't know which one to invest in, but you're gonna make money back on Bitcoin eventually, because Bitcoin is the one that always keeps on going up. Well, I'm gonna bet on Bitcoin, right? So so that's the same thing. I think that faith I can bet, I can focus on, and I can repeat it. So if I go back, I'm gonna do the same thing on that.
Yeah, I think you hit on something very important, and I don't see it just as a father. I think that's just something men would benefit from, just standing for something. Because like even with culture and society, a lot of things just feel like we're on shifting sand sometimes. Like, things are just so different now than they were 5 years ago, let alone 10, 20, 30 years ago. And who knows what the future is going to look like. But those principles, they've stood the test of time, and they're going to continue to. And
and if I can say something to men, like, I think that society has made it seem like for generations, maybe it's been pointed as we're being, that machista kind of mentality, right? Where we've been just the relationships and how we treated women is not the best example, right? If I could say it that way. But at the same time, I think that this generation has sort of shifted to the other extreme. We're saying, guys, your voice is not important. And I want to encourage men to understand that I'm going to speak from the point of view of a father. I'm not going to go into anything of politics or anything else. I'm just going to go into the point of view of a father. Your voice is crucial. Your voice will not be replaced. There is no way for your voice to be replaced, because your voice has weight that no one else can replace on the life of your child, of your son, of your daughter. So it's important for you to know that your role as a man is not about screaming, it's not about yelling, but there is weight in what you're saying. There's authority in what you're saying and how you invest in. That means that you've got to be careful what you say, but also know that what you say is important. And take that.
100%. It's
Take that.
to add to the point. I've spoken about this podcast to a couple of people now. Not a couple, maybe like 25 people already. Along with that, so I'm a life coach, and my mission is to help men repair their relationship with their kids. And that's a focus that I've honed in on recently. And every single person I've mentioned that, like, there's a group of coaches online, people from Chile, people from the UK, like the West Coast, East Coast. I talked about this. I had a session with my coaches, a group coaching session, and by the end of it, you could hear a pin drop. There was one woman who said, like I have great takeaways, but I cannot talk right now. I'm very emotional based off of this conversation. It's like the role. That's why this podcast to me is so important, because I think a lot of the problems can stem from either dad not being home or the relationship with dad not being great. And a lot of problems we see in the world is because of that. And yeah, there might be a lot of people saying like, yeah, dad's not that important anymore, but I would say that that's just the headline talking. What people really feel is the complete opposite. And I've never experienced that with anything else that I've kind of like spoken about. So
yeah, and just to be fair or balanced, I mean, if you suck as a dad, you're damaging people's lives, right? So if someone is hurt with pain and is saying, listen, dad's voices are not important, obviously their father didn't invest in their life and it's understandable. So it's something that you can understand, and you can say, okay, yeah, I get it. So it's true. That's why it's so important for you to really understand the weight and the heaviness of what it is to be a father, because you definitely are marking people's lives.
Yeah, I know. In my life, I've been on both sides of those coins. Me growing up with my mom alone, so I definitely see that too. And my question to you is, again, if we were to go back in time with each of your kids, what would you do? What would you do differently?
What would I do different? Man, that was one of the ones that was really hard for me to say, because not because I wouldn't do anything different. I would probably say I would change a lot of things. There's a lot of things that I would change. See, when you come into being a father, you, like I said in the beginning, you don't come with a manual. You bring, with us, we at least, thank God, we have a GPS called the Bible, but we also bring on our pains and our hurts, because what we learned from us growing up as kids. So no matter how great your parents were, I always tell parents this all the time, no matter how great your parents were, you're still going to grow up and you're still going to have wounds. If you're real with your life, and you're real with looking inside your life and seeing that you want to grow and you want to be better, so that means you have to look deep and do the work, you're going to discover there's pain there. It might not be abusive pain, it might be, but there's going to be things, because your parents are not perfect. So there's going to be moments where they're going to say things or they're going to do things. And I think that you bring that baggage into parenting, just like you bring that baggage into marriage, you bring that baggage into parenting. There's times where I'm pretty sure that I've said things or reacted in a certain way that I probably marked my kids, man. I'm just being real. Like, it's not about abuse. It's just, I'm pretty sure, I can't think of something specifically, but I can think of moments where I might have reacted the wrong way, or maybe I judged or I prejudged. I thought that, they were doing something they weren't, or I didn't defend them when I should have defended them. Like I should have protected them from somebody or an adult that was responding a certain way, but because because of a lot of things. In my case, because I'm the pastor and I don't want to, hurt somebody else. So I didn't respond to my kids. I'm being really transparent right now. Or because I didn't want to, or I didn't believe them, my kids, right? Like I because you know them. So because you know them, you're like, okay, no, he probably or she probably did that. But then it turns out later on that they didn't, you know, and you already missed that moment. And then I might have marked them for them to feel like dad wasn't there to protect them, or dad wasn't there to stand up for them, you know. And those are hurts, man. Now what you do is you learn, and you don't want to repeat those things. But some of the things are inside of our characters, and you got to do the work to change it. So I know I went deeper in the answer than just
Go
giving you a
deeper. That's the
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, there's definitely, I would look at things. It's hard for me to say one specific thing, but I would say that there's a lot of them that I would do
yeah,
different.
and I respect that. I think we don't know what we don't know, and sometimes hindsight, it
It's
can just be
2020. Yeah.
hindsight could also just be a jerk. Like I look
Word
back and
up.
I can look back like, oh, I wish I did this. Like, yeah, like, and I was telling this the other day. I was like even then, like, there's so many things I would want to do differently. But at the end of the day, like, here I am though. I'm so
Yeah.
happy. Why would I want things to be different?
Mm.
Or not why, but like, would I really want it to be different? I mean, I wish my dad was with us growing up. But at the end of the day, would I have really created this if it wasn't for that? So it's like,
That's the
so
real deal, man. Yeah, you don't know. You
yeah,
don't know. Like you don't know. You don't know. So that's the powerful thing of trusting in God's sovereignty, that
yeah,
it's like, hey, he knows what's up, and you don't know, and you want to do better. You want to keep growing, because you can't use that as an example of saying, okay, whatever I do doesn't matter because everything's going to turn out okay. Obviously, that's not true. So you've got to
yeah,
keep trying, developing people. You keep developing yourself, and then trusting for that. The rest is out of your hands, and trusting God.
yeah, man. And what is your proudest moment as a father
Oh, my
so far?
proudest moment as a father so far. Um, I would say when I see my kids, um, you know, demonstrating compassion. Like, but when I don't, when I know that they don't see me seeing them. So if I catch a glimpse of them, like, you know, demonstrating love to somebody, serving somebody else and helping them, or just being nice, man. Listen, kids nowadays, I see a lot of kids, man. They're not nice. They're just mean people. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just talking about anybody's kids in specific, but just like you go outside, you see kids just ignoring everybody. Letting women. Sometimes they won't even. A gentleman, a kid, I see a boy. He won't even open the door for someone, or for a lady's coming. Just he'll see them and ignore them. If I see little pockets of moments of kindness in my kids, man, that's an awesome thing. It's an awesome thing to see. I wish I could tell you it's when they won, the World Series of their little league, but I'm not into sports, man. So my kids, it's a different world for us. So for us, it's like, when I see them, share compassion, and when they're loving on people, when they're served. When my sons help out in like the kids area,
Mhm.
and I see them like actually being amazing kids with other kids, and like helping them when they take care of like the little kids, and they're like helping them and teaching them. It's awesome to see that stuff, man. It's at the end of the day, for me and my wife, I think that's the stuff that carries on. If
Yeah.
if I tell you it's when they got good grades, or it's when I got a good report in school, yeah, that's cool. Like my daughter, my eldest, she's been in gifted and talented since she was little. And then she's like in the gifted and talented high school here, and I'm flexing right now, but the reality is, like that's cool. I mean, obviously that's great, but like what fills my heart, even though I want them to get good grades, I want all that stuff, but what fills my heart is when I see them like demonstrate compassion, having empathy, just like the deep stuff that's gonna carry you over when you become an adult, and then when you're investing in your wife or my sons, or with their husband, my daughter, and then passing that on to their kids, that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that really fills my heart, man. For real. That's a good question, bro. I like that.
Well, I hope you like this next question. What is your biggest regret as a dad?
Oh my Lord. Come on. My biggest regret as a dad, not figuring all this stuff out before I had kids. And that's like a crazy question and crazy answer, because sometimes I think you don't really know this stuff until you're in the middle. You know how in life, you're going through stuff and then you learned it because of what happened, right?
Yeah.
Even though sometimes we don't learn, even when we go through it. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like, that's not, experience doesn't make you wiser. You've heard me say this before, right? Experience doesn't make you wiser. It's when you analyze your experience and dig out the golden nuggets, and then that, because experience by itself doesn't make you wiser. I see people that go through the same thing over and over again, they don't learn. So I think but one of my biggest regrets is knowing that I was going into something as a dad beforehand, having it in my hands, right? And still not learning it. And I wish I would have known it before. So I was a youth pastor for a lot of years. I helped parents, before even being a dad, help parents understand teenagers, understand that they are going to react a certain way, that there's a chemical disbalance, literally when they become 13. The hormones kick in, their brain is not working the same way. Some people say it's like brain damage they have. I mean, that's used it too lightly, but it's just that, because it's not bad. It's just that they are changing. They're in between two worlds, right? Between childhood and then adulthood. So they're trying to figure out who they are in the world, their identity, all that stuff. Well,
Mhm.
I help parents understand that stuff. I read books. I taught in different places, all over this world. I'm not kidding you. All over the world, teaching, in South America about understanding teenagers, working with them. But then I had a teenager, and it's like, yo, what the heck happened to everything that I knew? Because I felt like I didn't know anything. You know what I'm saying? So I regret not, not like knowing it and living it. There's a lot of times where I think I could have dug into the stuff that I knew and you applied it at that moment. So I felt like I had to relearn everything, bro. Yeah, that's one of my biggest regrets.
It's one thing I learned very early on is like, don't just learn from your experiences, learn from other
Mm,
people's experiences. And
that's
I
true
think
wisdom, my brother.
that's very big but like, it's like the same thing. Even if you don't learn it, or even if you see it and you don't use it, okay, like, you're kind of using, like, that's why books are so beneficial. You could what is it called? Not downgrade, but like turn decades into days, like just really transform that. And I think your experience and just everything that you've mentioned is there's an impact you and I are not going to see
Mm,
from this conversation.
mm,
Someone's going to listen to it and they're just not going to talk about it to us, but that's
mm.
going to have an impact, and it's that experience. So I thank you for that. And for the fathers who don't get to see their kids as often, maybe they're just divorced, maybe they're not part of their kids' lives. What would you want them to know right now?
That's a tough one, Andres. Are they not part of them because of by choice, or because of they just can't?
Both. Maybe they see them
Well,
every other weekend. Maybe they're out of
Well,
state.
the ones that are by choice, meaning they can't see their kids, or they don't want to see their kids because they occupied by other things. I just want to encourage you without judgment. I would say to you, no, the reason that you're probably feeling that way is because your dad didn't invest in you. And if you look deep into your life and you see the struggles that you've gone through and the pain, and you don't have to say anything to me, just hearing this, but if you look into your life, you look at the struggles, the pain that you've gone through. Um, if you step back for a moment and take away the pain thing, right? And you look at your life, I'm pretty sure there's moments in your life where you would have wished you didn't go through that. And I would encourage you to look at your son or your daughter and make that decision and say, you know what, I'm not going to let them go through it either. So be intentional in spending time with them. You know, don't make that choice just because that's what your feeling is. Because sometimes we go through life and we just go by what we feel, or we're going through life like zombies, sort of, where we're just, our primal reactions, and we don't hit pause. We can go to work, we can do all these things and go through life, but you don't really look at why you're doing what you're doing. Maybe this right here is a moment where you're being checked, and you're being checked to the point of of saying to you, maybe you got to check your heart and check why you're feeling, why you're doing what you're doing, and take a moment and then analyze. If you do make the decision to invest in their life, start analyzing on how they react. The first reaction is going to be, maybe if you haven't been around them for a long time, it could be that they're going to react, cold to you, right? And maybe that's what's been pushing you back, because they haven't really reacted the way that you wish they reacted. Sometimes we go into this thing where, we expect people to react a certain way, so we try, but then when they don't react a certain way, we shut down. And it's because the human nature is that we run towards acceptance, but we run away from rejection. So if you never had invested in your kid, then it could be that they're going to reject you in the beginning, but you're going to have to be the adult, look past your pain, look past your need, look past all the desires that you wanted, and just keep investing. And then eventually you're going to see it, because your words have weight. Your presence has weight. And I think you can really make an impact. For those dads that can't be with their kids, not by choice, but because of restrictions or whatever, and they can only see them every other week, I would tell you, man, that there's situations in life that maybe because of your choices, or maybe because of choices of other people, there's things that happen in our life, right? So we have two choices. We could either linger on, oh, I don't get enough time, and I don't, it's not my fault. When you're with them, you're like, it's your mom's fault. It's because of her. And then you're wasting all that amazing, precious time. Or you can say, you know what? Things happen. I can't control the past, right? I can't change the past. I can't control the future, but I can be present, right? Because the present is a gift. You've heard this before, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's called the present, because it's a gift. You have it right now. So be present. Those moments that you have, if it's 2 times a month, once every other week, man, make that the most amazing time ever. Instead of crashing, instead of taking them to like the jump park and just letting them go and say, I did it, and you take them home. No, like, invest in them, jump with them, be there with them, whatever. And it's crazy because I go to jump park, I won't jump, but I'm with my kids all the time. So if you can't be with them every two, then you're gonna have to push yourself and be there. Or just if it's hard for you because you're still struggling with pain, also, because that could also be that you want to be with them, you're only with them 2 weeks, but you're struggling with your own pain, then do what you can with what you got. So the times that you're with them, invest in them with what you like to do, right? And just trust that the quality time you're going to invest in them is definitely going to make something different. It's not going to be perfect, guys, but no one is perfect. It's not going to be the perfect thing, but nobody's perfect. It's just that's not what you have to do yet. You can't linger on the past, right? And you can't really control the future, so be present. Yeah.
What is one thing you would want to say to the new dad who's either expecting or planning?
Oh my Lord. Yo, get ready to spend a lot of money, man. And if I can say one thing to a new dad, I would say, don't be scared. Don't have any fear. It works out. I said a lot of things in this time, so I think that it could be a heavy thing where you're saying, oh my gosh, there's so much responsibility. Yeah. What am I getting into? But it works out. And if you trust him and you trust God, you trust, you take these, you take this wisdom and you apply it, it works out. It works out. And don't be scared. Don't be scared to be protective, right? And don't be scared to trust. Got that? Don't be scared to be protected. Don't be scared to trust. So as you're going into dad, you're sort of like, I want to protect them and stick them in a bubble. Don't be scared to protect them. That's okay. When your mom tells you, oh, you got to let them, do this, you gotta do that. You're the dad, right? But at the same time, I want to challenge you. Don't be scared to trust, because other people have gone through it before you. And there's things that they're gonna tell you that you can take in as wisdom and you can actually apply it. My wife told me this the other day, and I would share this with you. My wife told me, she regrets not letting the boys be more adventurous when they were little. And we were campers. We take them out to do crazy boy things. My son has a electric motorcycle where he rides everywhere. I mean, they're boys. But what she was talking about was like playing with dirt more. You know what I'm saying? Like letting them, like letting them be out there and do more things. Just like she grew up when she saw her brothers and her brother and her cousins and just being boys, like more. You gotta trust. You can't control everything. So I think as a new dad, we can either, so I see dads either be overprotective or over trusting. And sometimes over trusting can linger could go into not caring. And I would say that you need to be both. So be protective, but also be trusting. Don't be in any extreme, man. Be comfortable to protect, be comfortable to trust. That's what I would tell them.
Powerful stuff, man. And my last question, this isn't for me. This isn't for the other men listening to this. This is, what is one thing that you want to tell each of your kids?
Love God, love people, guys. If I'm not here tomorrow, one thing I want you to remember of me, I'm talking like if I'm talking to them. If I want you to remember me, don't remember me for the cool things that I did and how good looking I am. Remember me for teaching you how to love God and love people. Because if you do both things, genuinely, not because I told you, but because you're really living it out, your life will be completely different, and it'll be an amazing adventure. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be worth living.
Thank you so much for joining me here, Pastor Jay. I think there's so much to unpack here. Looking forward to re-listening to this over and over again the next couple of years. So thank you so much, man. I don't know what else to say.
That's all good, man. Thank you for having me. And I pray that, you continue to do some amazing stuff with these guys, and that, that everyone that's listening gets some golden nuggets out of everything that you do, man. You're worth it. You guys are amazing. You and Maria are amazing. We love you guys. Can't wait to have you back over here just to see you and hug you. And we'll see you soon.
Likewise, man. Thank you.
Peace.